Thank you, Hubert. Hi, welcome. I am so extremely excited right now because also I have my friends here, so thank you for being here. And yeah, well, let me start with the short story. I love Krakow, and it's one of my beloved cities in the whole Poland. But the problem is that you have no sea, and I'm a very sea person because I am from Gdańsk. And when you live in Gdańsk, you know that you have to travel across Gdańsk, Sopot, and Gdynia quite a lot. And for those who ever dream to come there with train or without the car, you know that it's quite complicated and tricky to travel because you have to choose one of the roads. It's not that obvious because you can even spend 2 hours going from Gdańsk to Sopot, which is like 10 kilometers. And also, if there was one ticket for everything, that would be wonderful, but you have to buy a ticket for each separate part of this road. So, not that cool. You also have to choose if you want to go by one train, another train, tram, bus, everything. So it's a nightmare, and I really am sorry for everybody who goes like this to Gdańsk. However, one day, we heard that something will be changed in our situation, and there will be a new system, a new fala system. And fala in Polish means a wave. So it was supposed to be one place where you can buy all the tickets together. It even suggests the most convenient way how you can get from one to another place. And there is no need to pay in cash, you just use your application. So it was wonderful, and Gdańsk and Tricity was saved, right? But when we remember what the wave means, it means, or maybe the best thing that the wave does is actually washes away. And it is, this washing away was supposed, this wash away, it washed away all the hope for saying goodbye to the problems we had. So it started with huge delays. People were complaining because all the functionalities that were announced were not delivered, and delays means extra cost also for the partnership cities, so it was a nightmare for people. And also when the features were released, they were not really functional, they were clunky, people didn't know how to use this application. So it did not work as supposed. And what was the reason? Maybe technical difficulties, how to really integrate all the types of transport types and ticketing system control, or maybe not enough people to handle it all, or maybe bad management of those people. And actually, who cares? Because we just wanted to use the system and get from one place to another. And our initial experience as travelers was terrible, and it didn't go better with time. And it could be better from the very beginning, so what did go wrong? User experience is a sequence of dependencies, and many companies, many teams, and many of us forget about it or start to underestimate it. And when we omit this fundamental right, it leads to inconsistencies, frustration, delays, and wasted money. So with right approach and focusing on environment of people who create things, we can all avoid it. So with my experience around such an approach, I would like to make sure that you can be part of the final success of your product, your company, and your teams. So welcome to the presentation. The sword of UX has 2 edges, final user experience and those along the way. And let me start with the meaning of my title, because it's very symbolic and it means something. It is very connected with the quote by Andrzej Sapkowski, an author of the Witcher books. And there was a part in Sword of Destiny. The Sword of Destiny has 2 edges. You are one of them. There are hundreds of interpretations of this simple quote. And I would like you to think about what the title of this presentation means to you. I will share my interpretation by the end of this, And let's see if we can align, or maybe it will be completely different. I am very curious, and I will also have a task for you after that. I am Anna Nojek, and as Hubert just said, I work in CD Projekt Red, and I am responsible for creating designs, tools for artists, developers, to unblock them and streamline their workflow. My work lets me see the full process of game production, and I focus on people who work on it. So I support other teams with UX fundamentals and some tips and tricks, how they can use it for the sake of their projects. And I'm also a trainer, mentor, and I share my experience with young designers who make the first steps on their career path. So how getting from Gdańsk to Gdynia really relates to this story, because it obviously does. When somebody wants to get from one place to another, where the UX really start, what it really means. When they want to choose a road, or maybe they want to choose a transport way, or maybe they want to change it, or maybe they want to buy a ticket on the bus or online or in the shop, or maybe they hear about the new system, so they want to use the application, so they need to register, and they need to pay for the service. This is the client side, right? And what about everything that happens with the people who create it? Developers, all the tasks they have, even the ticket controllers for drivers, who are also very important. Everything people experience is caused by some factors we are not fully aware of, and we should not be as users, clients, people who just use something. And because of it's hidden, it is under the surface. Everything we experience as people is the top of the iceberg. And there are many people who are involved, many people who are engaged. When we take the Fala system as the example, there were people who were managed by someone. They had an unrealistic timeline or deadlines. They were people who maybe they were not so many of them. I don't know how many worked on this system, but their actions finalized in the final shape of the product they delivered. And how they worked affected how users could, or rather couldn't, use the app. And obviously, how this application and this system was perceived. There is a term in UX which is a big picture approach. It is a holistic system that let us understand the overall user journey. And it is to ensure that every interaction of the users is aligned with the broader goal of the product and experience. And in fact, this approach stands for taking care of each element and each step being part of the whole. However, in my entire UX career, I had a feeling that UX is very often perceived as only a part of the final experience, just a portion of it. So, for example, many people say that this application has wonderful UI, so the UX is great, right? And it doesn't work this way. Or teams start to work on the project, and they start to think that what is convenient for them will be also convenient for the user. It's a nice trend to have UX designers on the team, and it's wonderful because thanks to that we have jobs. However, when designers start to work in different projects, they start to work on different levels of the project or of the product itself. And they start to lose focus. Sometimes they don't have different designers to talk, having discussion about things. So they start to make sure that their part is wonderful, it's user-friendly, but what about the rest? And all the things, all those steps, these are just the examples, end up with all the pieces that cannot be connected back again to the whole. So we came to the point when the user experience is incomplete, messy. And one point in my career, I realized that I would like to change this view by my own actions, because I think that when we ignore when the user experience comes from, what affects it, how it is created, there is no sense in designing anything at all. And this is the meaning of having big picture in our minds. And since this topic is quite complex, I would like to go with a metaphor. And I would like to evoke one crucial, inspirational person. And ladies and gentlemen, obviously it's Don Norman, right? The creator of user experience term. Not this time, because I would like to go with Shrek. And since this is a character from the beginning of our century, from our century, oh my God, it really sounded like a lot of time ago. But let's watch a short video, because I would like you to focus on one particular scene.
Information, there's a lot more to ogres than people think.
Example?
Example? Okay, ogres are like onions.
They stink?
Yes. No.
Oh, they make you cry?
No.
Oh, you leave them out in the sun, they get all brown, start sprouting little white hairs.
No. Layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
What happened here was that Shrek said that there is much more to ogres than people think, because they are like onions and they have layers. What about Shrek layers? He was perceived and seen as a monster. People were scared of him. People called him names. And all the experiences he had with those people made him a person who he became. All the actions he did, he made it to make sure that he can live in peace, so nobody will hurt him. And in fact, he was a complex being with a lot of thoughts and emotions and good within. And all of those experiences were his layers. And this is the same story with user experience. So it is like an onion. The shiny exterior that we can see as a final product is just the exterior. And inside we have many multiple factors that make this form be even possible to exist. And it means that every layer is important, because without it, it will just collapse. If experiences of people who build are poor along the way, it will be mirrored in all the further steps of creating the product. So how we can even take care of those needs and why we should do that? Let's go with skills and needs. Initially, we had two groups of skills. Maybe today it's a bit blurry, but we had soft skills and hard needs, while soft skills, these are our traits, our skills that let us communicate with other people. This is how we really get along with others and how we build a community. And then we have hard skills, which are something that are more learned. This is how we can perform job-specific tasks, like using frameworks, like using tools, such as Figma, for example. And the same situation goes with needs. We have two groups. The first one is very often, for me, it is like employee experience. These are all the factors that stands for the atmosphere and feeling of belonging in the group. It is everything that goes with salary, like benefits or remote working, mental support, feedback and about personal development or work culture, or company values, and obviously branding swag like t-shirts and full cups and all the stuff around it. And the whole culture is very important in that. But this whole bunch that goes with soft needs is not enough to make sure that we are professionally successful. This is the goal for the hard needs. When they are met, we are effective, productive, and efficient. And this is everything that goes with processes, workflows, tools, or pipelines we have in our teams. On the today's market, at least in the game development, technology doesn't meet the user's needs. By users, I mean the developers and artists and everybody who works within the company. Because game projects start to become very complex. We are required to deliver faster and deliver the most possible, highest quality of everything. So it's very complex and very demanding. So it looks like 88%, so almost 9 out of 10 people claim that they actively evaluate new tools to bring them into their workflows. What does it mean for us as designers? It means that if those people are not well supported, it will all affect how the product is built. So if they are well supported, they have tools that are crafted to their needs, it will help them to achieve the professional goals. So why is that really crucial? Because taking care of teams' needs influences whether you can or can't take care of the user's needs, the final user's needs. Which means when our developers, creators are well supported and their needs are met, they can deliver products and services that really solve problems of final users or just make them happy. So if they are stuck and their hard problems are unsolved, they will have delays, functionalities will not be fully released or they will be just full of bugs, and it will all affect the final user experience of our users. So what problems we really have along the way? And you can ask, okay, but you're from game development right now, so how does it really relate to your work? I can tell you that these are the problems that I observed in my previous projects. Also, I observed them in the two-day job market, and I also did a deep research about what people really struggle with. So we have 5 groups of problems, and maybe you can relate to some of them. First thing is scattered knowledge and resources. Imagine when you get on board and you want to know what kind of resources you could use, what kind of assets, what kind of design system or components. And you get to know that in your company there are 2 design systems and there are like 50 teams that use it completely differently because they think that their needs are more important. So everything is scattered, and you have no idea where is the source of truth. So you have to ask people, you have to spend your time, you have to waste your time, and it's not very efficient for you, right? Then imagine that you work on a continuation of a project, for example, a new game by your company, and you want to use animations or some assets that could be reused because they already exist. But you have 9 repositories with thousands of assets to choose from. And you spend 2 days to search for one thing. And at the end of the day, you have to recreate it. So this problem kills speed, effectiveness, and efficiency. Then we have poor transparency, which goes perfectly, or rather poorly, with communication. After COVID-19, we started to work remotely. And for many of us, it's wonderful. But let's be real, it really goes somehow with how we communicate with others. Because we talk online, sometimes we don't even see our faces. So it's very hard to really be up to date with everything that happens in our company, in our environment. Many teams start to use different tools. Many teams work in different time zones. So it's very, very challenging. And it really affects consistency of our product, but also the common goal of our company, our studio, the vision of it. Then we have fragmented and complex workflow. And when we go back to the big picture, I just said that many teams build internal tools and they do it by their own. So they create a tool for every problem they have. They do it very fastly and rapidly. Sometimes those tools are really very unintuitive. They are manually maintained. There is no automatization. And it's very difficult to be really efficient again with such a situation, so it leads to burnt hours. Then we have dependencies, because when we work in any kind of environment, we have designers that are dependent on researchers and their outcomes. Artists are dependent on developers, or they are dependent on other artists. Like, for example, audio designers wait for animators to provide the animation, because only then they can start to work on the sound. If anything is blocked in this chain, how possible it is to deliver really on time? Each delay causes extra costs, and each extra cost means that it actually supports a culture of crunches for game development, for example. Then we have situations when tools are designed by engineers, by developers, and it is very common. So internal tools and pipelines start to force creators, the artists, the developers, the game developers, just to be on the same page, to use tools that are clunky, unintuitive, very frustrating, and it leads to frustration and slower workflows. So there was one situation, one lead, his name was Łukasz, who thought, okay, guys, we need help. And he wanted to hire the first internal tech-centered UX designer in the company. And it was me. I was the first one in this company to really support the developers, the creators. And I asked him, okay, what was the moment when you really felt like you need some support and why you even needed that, right? And he said that he saw how much frustration was caused by poorly written tools, and he knew how those tools were really written because he saw it. He always tried to have the user's needs in his mind when he did anything, but he was the only one. He didn't know how to really share this mindset. And he was not even UX designer, he was a motion capture artist. But he knew he has to change something. And it was an experiment, it was kind of declaration. Company trusted him, and he said, I need to change it, and I will do it with the right person to help me with that. When I joined CD Projekt Red, my initial allocation was to build a database. And soon I learned that there is a whole web of dependencies and problems around it. Some of them I just shared with you. I learned that the greatest value in our environment were to provide high-quality results using and boosting creativity and make it in a super fast pace. And previous workflow did not support it at all. So the initial project, our project, extended drastically. We called it Asset Hive, and it was a place where we wanted to gather all the assets from our games, everything that was created, so the users can find it quickly, reuse it, and get all the crucial information about those assets. The goal was to make it easy, super fast, and grow with every stage of production in our environment, because it was the clue in this whole project. And it took us long months, and we are still on the process of working on it. But we already see the first results, because people started to come to us and say, hey, guys, it took us 2 days to find one thing, but now we can find it within 5 seconds. So it was a game changer. And do you think that it changed the situation and solved all the problems? It didn't. Because we have over 500 people in game development in our team. And we have plus 80 departments of artists. And we have 2 UX designers who can help them and support them. So it is challenging. However, the proof with which I can say that Łukasz was successful with this experiment he did was that people from different teams started to come to us and ask for support, UX support. So how can we do it using the UX frameworks? So what I do in my job is a constant checking out what's going on and what's up with different things, with different teams. And in the meantime, on working of Asset Hive, I started to create 3 different projects in the same time. So try to do the research, ideate, define, prototype, test, and everything in the same time for 4 different projects at the same time. It's super challenging when you're alone, but I think that many of you can relate to this, and many of you can be those 3 atoms who run from one team to another, one project to another, and work on different things in the same time. So I think that we can help ourselves. And this is where the team appear. We have a team, and this team can be a simple team of UX designers or our development teams, but it can also be more symbolic, let's say, because it can be a team of people who think alike. And to make them feel alike, you can find them, obviously, but you can also teach them. And this is how you can do it. I mean, you can use your knowledge. You can share your knowledge, and you can do it in multiple ways. Organizing webinars within your environment, workshops, meetings, or trainings about what the UX is and how you can use it within your team, because it's not about really using all the design process. It is about the mindset and how to really start doing things in the right way. And this is very connected with the fact that if you want to make good UX within your environment, even working on external, final experiences of your companies, you cannot hide in the shadow. Because for me, being a UX designer is a bit like being in a music band. People know you exist to start to listen to you. And this is not a good information for those who are not kind of frontmans. But it doesn't mean that you have to go to a conference and stand on the stage and talk to people. It can also be a simple meeting with key people, stakeholders, teams. You know, it's even a situation when you talk with somebody on a corridor. So it's very important that you just speak up and you are not afraid of going to the audience in many ways. So I can just encourage you to do so, because without it, we cannot change anything and we have no impact. And I think that our job can actually bring wonderful and impactful differences in the whole job market and also for ourselves, because the more people know how we work and share the same mindset, the easier our work starts to be, because we are supported with others, with how people start to really take our roles. And the good information is that the companies already started to see importance of such initiatives. Technology innovation started to be a key and critically important factor when managing teams. What you can see on this chart is on the horizontal axis, you have employee count in the company, and on the vertical axis, you have the percentage of how much time is spent on development of internal tools. From this chart, you can see that for companies with more than 5,000 people, 45% of time is spent on building internal tools. And this percentage doesn't go below 25, which is great, because it means that people started to think about it. And this is where the UX can play a significant role, especially when we remember what happens when engineers start to design. And the last solution, or maybe some kind of advice, is that we need to guide and we need to be aware and share this. So every time you do something, every time you work on something, every time you see that somebody works on something, use documentation. And never leave your idea or your framework or anything without the comment. Because it's crucial that even you can go back to this story after some time and get some recollection of what you really did. And then you don't have to be assigned to any particular team and work only with this team. You can help other teams with even some kind of reviews of their work. What I did some time ago, it was like 3 weeks ago, was that I allocated my one sprint trying to support other team to see what they were working on. And I did some kind of UX recommendation for them. So they could see, okay, we did this thing, then there were user testing, and now we know what to change. And these are those kind of steps that you can take. And then observe and listen to all people who are involved. It means that the inspiration and knowledge goes from really many people that you are surrounded by. These are your peers, your colleagues, your stakeholders, and people in your company, many of them. So really listen to them and understand and see all the aspects of where you are working at. And then there is a perfect moment to say what can go wrong, obviously, and what I did wrong when I worked on different things, especially for last, let's say, 1.5 years. I thought that there is a magical process that will solve all the problems. The design process that will just appear on stage and everybody will just adjust to it and everybody will start using it and the world will be saved. And soon I learned that when I tried to force people to use this framework, they didn't want to do it. They started to be very reluctant, and I started to get feedback from them. I mean, like, I asked for the feedback, I created some surveys, I did some kind of conversation, discussion moments, and I learned that, okay, we don't want to do it this way. So what I did was, instead of trying to adjust the team to the process, I started to adjust process to the team. It's cliché, but sometimes we really think that we do the right work and we do just the opposite. So always listen to your team, people around you, because they know exactly what they want, but maybe sometimes they don't know how to say it. Then the situation when you are very committed to what you do. You start to identify with the project. And you want to be on every step of implementation, of testing, everything around it. And here goes the dependency problem, right? When you start to be everywhere, people need to wait for you. So it's getting harder, it's getting slower. Nobody's really happy with that. And what we really have to do is to trust our teams, because they really have the same goal as you. And we need to trust each other, and this is extremely important. And of course, relax, because everybody wants to get to the same point. We just want the success of what we are working for and on. The last one is when you're trying to go and you have no idea where. And you ask, okay, but what are the indicators of success, or what's the goal, well, anything. And nobody wants to tell you because, for example, product owner doesn't really have everything written. He has everything in his head. And this is a very important message for product owners, if there are any of them here. Take it out of your head. And for the UX designers, product designers, when you cannot take it from the head of your product owner, you can try to help him, write it, map it. And this is also very important because this is also part of our job, to make sure that people have reason to do something. To roll up here, UX is a system of dependencies. It's like an onion, and we always have to remember about each layer that it consists of. Hard needs must be always supported, because without it, we are not professionally successful. There is no way to be successful if we don't have right tools and we are not supported with right knowledge and structures. Problems can be solved in multiple different ways. You can just share your knowledge. You can be the person who always wants to talk with others and inspire them to do something and support them when you see that something is wrong in their areas. And remember, you have to be kind of brave with what you want to say, because this is very important to play our music loudly. Without it, nobody will see any difference, and they will not even know that it's possible to change. Watch the traps. Talk about problems, be honest with each other, and just make sure that you talk about problems. And now it's the perfect time for the interpretation of this title. My interpretation is that it represents two edges that are essential to form the final blade. There is inside and outside experiences which, viewed alone, are incomplete and powerless, and only together they are part of something greater. So actions on one side always impact the other side, and together they create the outcome. The sword that swishes through the rival blades or our competition. So if your interpretation is similar or you think completely differently, I am very curious about it, and now it's time for the task that I told you about. I have just posted something on LinkedIn with the question, how you really interpret this title, what it really means to you. And I would like to have a conversation with you, because now we don't have time for that, and it's impossible. But if you want to share what you really think about it, I'm very curious, and let's explore this topic together. So whatever it is, whatever the interpretation is in your mind, you have totally right to interpret it in your own way, as much as you can interpret your role as UX designers in your own way. The most important thing is to remember what Don Norman really said, and its UX is the way you experience the world. Your life, a service, or ultimately an app or application. It's a system that is everything. And now I would like to thank you, and I would like to, if you want to share a feedback about this presentation, if you liked it or hated it, I'm more than happy to read that. And you have also the QR code for the LinkedIn, so you can share your interpretation with your own words. So thank you very much.
Let's show some love for Anna Nojek. I'm pretty sure that you all agree that using clip from Shrek was iconic and peak user experience for us. Am I right? And about layers, we can start an interactive layer of your presentation, which is Q&A. And I'm waiting for raised hands and questions from the public. So, anyone wants to start? We got one.
Hi, I have a question because you mentioned that you got onboarded in your company as a new UX UI designer. And what is the real value that stands behind hiring an in-house UX UI designer instead of outsourcing it by agency or freelancing? What's your point of view of that?
First of all, I would think that it's the question of a long-time relationship. When you are allocated in a team or in a company for a lot of time, you understand the people and the real context of how they work and what they really need. And the second one is that even the access to all the sources is complicated when you are a outsourced designer, because you cannot have the access to everything, I believe. But maybe it's not true. I think that most value here is to really feel the atmosphere and feeling of belonging to the group you want to support and create.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the public? Because I'm currently checking the chat, and I'm waiting also for questions from the chat. We got one. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna, for this great presentation. First thing, I really wanted to ask you about your role as a coach or a trainer. I really loved your approach, like with transferring the knowledge to the development teams rather than being a bottleneck and focusing on your individual work. How do you engage people in, generally speaking, going outside of their box and maybe taking more responsibility, including UX as a part of their daily duties?
You know, it's very difficult at the very beginning because you have no proof to really show it to people. But it's a process. With every step, when you create something, you can show them the results and effects of your work, and they start to really see how it can impact their work. So sometimes we have those sessions, we start to talk, they are very negatively, let's say that they don't want to take it. But then I ask questions, like what they really want to achieve and how those goals are really supported today. And we start the conversation, and sometimes it's about sharing the inspiration to them. So they start to listen to you, but it's a process. It will not happen that you will just go to the meeting and say, oh, now we are UX designers and we can design great things together. It doesn't work like this. You have to really build the trust between you and others. Thank you.
I saw another person with a question. Am I right? Yeah.
Hello, I have a question about more from a manager perspective.
Yeah.
So, what would you say, when is the time to hire an internal UX for internal tools? Because, for example, I work in a very small company, but we're growing, and I can already see the chaos creeping in. And for managers, what signs to look for when it's the time to hire an internal person?
I think that it's very much connected with what I said about Łukasz and his experiment, because he saw the frustration and he started to see how the badly written tools are impactful and how they really make the situation between people destructive or distracting. Yeah, and I think that the moment is when you see that people cannot work like this anymore. So this is just the observation of people you are surrounded by. When people go in the corridor and start shouting that, oh my God, it's all crap, then it's the moment that you can say, okay, what we can do about it? Maybe there's an UX designer waiting for us or something like this.
So you say that they just manifest themselves
Exactly.
inside the...
But it works like this, you know? You see the people, they're angry and you ask, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, it doesn't work. What doesn't work? Like, everything doesn't work. So, you know, it's also about how you see the people. And good managers see how people work.
So when you listen to them, you can find what problems they have, and they just appear.
Logically easy to be solved with right people on
Great.
board. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the public? I'm giving you some time to think.